So let's talk about the process of the week. Guiding the business is where this process is. So here in this library is where you'll find this process I'm talking about, as well as a lot of other great strategic and managerial board of director type processes, higher level processes. This process is already in my account because I already downloaded it, but I'm just going to select it. So this whole terminology about key performance indicators or key results, it's kind of thrown around a lot in business. And sometimes it's overdone, I think, and it makes it like so confusing for the people evaluating them that it just becomes, a difficult exercise that nobody actually does. Sometimes it's so overdone that it's never actually used, and it's usually a process that gets a good foothold and keeps going, but then falls apart eventually. And I feel like and what I've seen is the number one reason is it's just too confusing and hard for people to do. It doesn't have relevance. So this process from the library gives some forms for evaluating key indicators, but it also kind of talks about, some examples of some good key indicators. I would say no more than 3 are really valuable. If you want to do 4, fine, but try to keep it to 3. Think about the getting, doing, guiding, running. Management, sales and marketing, operations, admin, finance. What are the top indicators that need to be evaluated within each of these departments? So here inside of sales and marketing, we'd be talking about sales indicators, advertising indicators. Those would be the key indicators. So for sales indicators, things like conversion rate, that alone is a fantastic indicator. And it takes effort to figure out how to quantify that. Unless you're kind of at a high level and you've got a CRM that's really dialed in, people are using it well, and the information is good, and you can spit out a conversion rate, well, then it's easy. But a lot of smaller businesses kind of aren't at that level, or your CRM is kind of cluttered with information and even people aren't using it right because there's no process to use it, and people don't mark flags and things like that, and then you don't really know what your conversion rate is. So for sales, conversion rate alone. For advertising, it's basically the effectiveness of your advertising. So how many leads generated? And if you can take it one step further, it's how many leads generated from what sources, which is even more beneficial. But even how many leads generated is fantastic. So if we had how many leads generated and we had conversion rate, well, suddenly we're able to see from the leads generated, what did that cost us? And all of those leads generated, how qualified were they? Because that affects the conversion rate. And then the other question is, how well are the salespeople doing? Because that affects the conversion rate. So those 2 indicators alone force you to look at your processes, right? Because if I have a bad conversion rate and I want it to be higher, which is an easy, sometimes very inexpensive way to increase your sales. If I want to know why it isn't high, my conversion rate isn't higher, then I would go right to the sales processes. So what's wrong with the sales processes? For advertising, if my advertising I'm spending a lot of money and generating very little, well, then I need to start questioning these advertising processes. And I need to start questioning whether they're creating qualified leads. So all these questions come up to what do we need to do with our processes to affect the indicators? Things in running the business. So most of these things you can do financial indicators for sure, human resource type indicators. And small businesses waste tens of thousands of dollars a year by hiring the wrong people. And you all have experienced that, I'm sure. You hire the wrong person, it takes you 6 months to a year to figure it out. And all that time you've wasted all that money. So having recruiting and hiring indicators, doing good employee onboarding and have statistics around that. So back to this. So think through these performance indicators. What are the top 2 for every department? And here again are some examples of indicators that you can find here in this process. Down here, there's even forms that go into even more detail. So under human resources, things like employee turnover, employee training, employee morale. Those are 3 good ones. Here under operations, again, this depends on what industry you're in, clearly. Productivity is a fabulous indicator for operations. This just basically means how productive are your people. Whether you're in a service business, construction business, production business, productivity is still valid. And if you don't need any fancy tools to run productivity reports, all you need is time cards and results. How long did it take them? How long did it take them? That's it. So getting rough numbers is better than having no numbers. Here's some sales and marketing examples. So conversion rate, follow-up rate, this is a good one. We have a follow-up process in TouchStone that has some statistics on it about how much is lost by not good follow-up. Here's advertising. So leads generated, social media, leads generated, referrals. If you don't have a good way of evaluating this, go back to, until you can implement a good CRM system, go back to the little tick box. I mean, that's better than nothing. Where'd the lead come from? Where'd the lead come from? Put it into the spreadsheet. Here's a little custom form that's been built that your managers can use to give you the indicators once a month. So they could put in the review period, sales conversion rate, is it average or below average, and then comments. Just that. And so then this is sent to you as the manager, and you look at it once a month, and you know that your marketing manager, your sales manager, has analyzed the conversion rate for the month, said it's average or below average, and put in comments. I would suggest that you direct them that the comments need to be about how does the process need to improve to increase the conversion rate. What needs to be done in the process? Is it retraining of the salespeople? Is it more qualified leads? Well, the salesperson's always going to say they need more qualified leads. But you need to understand that. Are your advertising efforts generating good qualified leads? Here quickly, before I lose everyone, here's the control panel. I'm just going to show you that key indicator form in the control panel. So here's the control panel for the manager of marketing and sales. If I was this person, I'd go to this key indicator process. I'd call up the form, and then I fill it out. The review period is June. The conversion rate is 80%. Wouldn't that be nice? It's average, and then I put in comments. Then I save it. Now my manager has this. All they have to do is go here and run a report, and they'll see that. So I'm just going to do this as an example. Now it's probably going to pull a lot of things. But this is where they can easily go and run a report and see the conversion rate statistics. So I did this as me. That's who I'm logged in as. But if I was my manager logging in, I'd go here to management review. I'd look for my name here on the list, and then I'd hit run report. I can even search for key indicators in the save as or the date range and hit run report, and I'd see that little form.